Good morning. Welcome to our Wednesday morning Tanya Shir. We're learning Perek Aleph of Shaar and we're holding actually toward the second half of the Perek. We're going to start from the words where it says, I'm up with Lefi, up to the word Lefi. The Tanya that I'm using is not a Lessons in Tanya. It's just sort of a regular print in Tanya. So it's page Ayin Zayin, the second Amud of Shaar Ve'emunah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the top, where it says Lefi. So what we're learning, again, just very briefly, what we're learning is that the Alter Rebbe is explaining to us that when Hashem created the world during the 6 days of creation, and the Torah says that Hashem created the world, Ba'asara Mamoros, Hashem created with 10 utterances. So these words didn't just create the world once, and then the world remains in existence on its own, but rather these words, these oisios, remain invested in the world and constantly recreate it, or constantly push it, hold it in existence over and over again, just as they did by the Asara, just as they did during the Sheishis and Mebreshis the first time. And were they to stop for a moment, for a second, the world would go back to Ayin ve'efes mamash, to absolute nothingness, just like before the 6 days of creation. And once again, the Alter Rebbe adds the word mamash. Okay. The Alter Rebbe went on to say that this is true about all creations in Olamas Elyonim, in spiritual worlds and physical worlds. He went on to say that this is the deeper meaning of the teaching of the Arizal, that everything has a nefesh, everything has a soul, v'chayas ruchni, and spiritual energy. The meaning of it, the Alter Rebbe explains, is not just that it has a soul the way we normally understand the soul, right? We also, human beings also all have souls. Yid definitely has a soul, but if our neshama were to leave us, we wouldn't cease to exist, at least not immediately. Whereas here, so again, until Chassidus, we understood the teachings of the Arizal when it says everything has a nefesh. Everything has a nefesh. Everything has a spiritual element. Everything has a divine element. Everything has, however, some type of chayas ruchni. But Chassidus says, no, this nefesh v'chayas ruchni, it's not just an added element to the existence of the thing. Actually, it's responsible for the very existence of the thing. And were it to leave for but a moment, the thing would not just be void of its spiritual energy, but it would actually lose its very physical existence. All right? We discussed this a few times over the weeks, and this is the core of what's written in the first parak of Tanya. First parak of Shaar Ve'emunah, again as we discussed, based on the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, on the pasuk L'olam Hashem dvarcha nitzah b'shamayim, that Hashem's words remain forever in the heavens. The words that Hashem uttered in order to create the heavens, have to remain in the heavens in order for the heavens to remain in existence. Otherwise, the heavens would cease to exist. Okay. Then, from the words va'af shaloi huzkar, we're not going back over this now, we learned this in previous weeks. From the words va'af shaloi huzkar, the Alter Rebbe seems to deal with what is a technical question. Although, as we'll learn today in Mitzvah Hashem, it's not such a technical question, but it seems, at least at the outset, like a technical question. The technical question is this. Asara Mamoros means 10 utterances. It means when Hashem created the world, Hashem created it through saying 10 things. Yehi Or, Yehi Rakia, etc., etc. The amount of existences that exist, even on a physical level, is much more than 10. We're talking about, again, every different type of grass and every different type of animal and every different type of person and every different type of stone. And even no two blades of grass are exactly the same. So every nuance, every fiber, every atom, every electron of existence in a physical and a spiritual sense needs its own koyach, godly koyach, to keep it in existence. And all of this come from the words of Hashem that brought the world into existence. So the question is, if Hashem only said 10 things, then how from these 10 things, from these 10 utterances, can come so many thousands, millions, billions, trillions, etc., of all different types of existences? In the words of the Alter Rebbe, "Fa'af shalei huzkar shem even ba'asora mamoros shebaTorah." We're talking about how even a stone is kept and can only exist because there's a koyach elokי invested in this particular stone that keeps it in existence. Alter Rebbe says, if you look through the Asara Mamoros, you won't find anywhere the word even, the word stone. So how do you get stones in existence from the Asara Mamoros of Sheishis and Mebreshis? Yes? Question clear? All right. So the Alter Rebbe answers that the oisios, the words from the Asara Mamoros, they go through transitions. They go through the opposite of evolution. I think it's called devolution or de-evolution, whatever the word is. And basically they filter down. So from the Asara Mamoros, the words, the letters go through chilufim, exchanges, tumuros, another word for exchanges, gematriyos, mizgalgalois. The Alter Rebbe says, breish lamed echad she'orim. Apparently there are at least 231 system and ways that the letters of Hashem, the words of Hashem, transition and go from one stage to the next. And so, although you initially start off with only Asara Mamoros, only 10 utterances, but the letters in these 10 utterances are responsible for everything. From this comes everything. How does it happen? So you have letters, they get broken down, they get evolved, chilufim, tumuros, gematriyos, 231 systems. Okay. Until it comes down to every specific creation, to every specific individual, minute, nuanced fiber of existence, which each one of them has a koyach elokי that keeps it in existence. Okay. Now, this is the Alter Rebbe's answer. Oh, and we also learned in Alter Rebbe's answer that the name, that the final letters of Hashem that will give this particular existence its chayas, its vitality, its existence, this is, according to Torah, the name of the thing. So in the case of a stone, it would be the letters Aleph, Beis, Nun, that evolve from the letters of the Asara Mamoros that exist in the stone and that keep it in existence, etc. Of course, there are many, many different stones, and every stone is different from the other stone. So it's not all just Evan, but even within Evan, you have many different types. Okay. Now, today we'll learn the reason. The Alter Rebbe explains why. Why is it this way? In other words, why does Hashem say 10 utterances, 10 Asara Mamoros, creates 10 things, right? The heavens, the light, the water, things like that. And then from there, it gets broken down to everything else. Why is it that way? So Alter Rebbe says like this, because the reason for this is she'ein protei hanivroim, the specific small creations of Hashem, these small little creations, let's talk about a stone or a blade of grass, a blade of grass or a stone is too small of a creation to get its chayas, to get its life from the Asara Mamoros themselves, straight from the Asara Mamoros. The chayas, the energy that comes from the Asara Mamoros themselves, Godel Moed, is too great, it's too vast, too large for these specific creations. And these specific nivroim do not have the koyach, do not have the power, to receive the energy, unless the chayas goes through ishtalshlus, evolution, and breaks down and becomes smaller and smaller. Right? So this is the reason the Alter Rebbe gives. Again, Pardon me, you'll excuse me.
Oh.
Alter Rebbe says there's a reason why Hashem made the system in such a way where Hashem only actually articulates the names of 10 existences, the names of 10 Nivraim, and everything else comes from these Nivraim through all of these different systems that the letters transition from one level to another. There's a reason for it. It's not just to save time and energy. It's not like Hashem said, you know what, I can't. We're gonna delegate this, right? Can't sit here and say the name of every single blade of grass of creation. I'll just say 10, and they'll take care of the rest. No. It's not just to save time and energy. Alter Rebbe says the reason is because these specific created beings are too small. They cannot handle. They don't have the koyach, in Alter Rebbe's words. Ein bohem koyach to receive the chayas straight from the Asara Mamoros themselves. Only unless the Asara Mamoros get broken down into small, tiny little bits and pieces, only then can they take. Otherwise, from the Asara Mamoros themselves, they can't. Right? So okay, that's what's written here in Tanya. So to explain it, so this it's not actually doesn't seem, at least when you learn it at first, it doesn't seem like a difficult concept to understand. It's like how we would understand the concept of electricity, or not the concept of electricity, but the function of electricity, how it works. When I flip a switch in my house, so the light goes on. Now, that's because there's electricity. Now, the electricity comes to my house through wires, right? And the wires are coming from electricity wires, electricity poles. And the poles bring us energy from the plant. And the plant brings this source of energy from, where it's generated, all the way back to the original source, Niagara Falls, or whatever the case may be, right? So you say to yourself, okay, now imagine I take my little my iPhone, and I want to charge it, right? So I'm touring Niagara Falls, and I want to take a picture of Niagara Falls, but my phone died. So you say, listen, the whole world or the whole country gets all their koyach, the electricity comes from here. So just take your charger, shove it into Niagara Falls, and you'll get as much electricity as you need to charge your phone. So obviously I'm thinking about charging phones because I just traveled. And when we travel, you see, there's hundreds, thousands of people in an airport. Everybody's looking for a place to charge their phone. It's a tremendously powerful mashal. In Avoida, it means that a person has to constantly stay connected. Otherwise, you start to lose your energy. But here in Perek Aleph of Shaar Yichud Ve'emunah, the idea is that a nivra prati, a specific iPhone, wouldn't be able to charge directly from Niagara Falls. Why not? Because the amount of koyach, the amount of electricity that's being generated at the very source of where all the electricity comes from, it's too powerful. It's too much. If you technically would be able to plug in an iPhone into it, it would completely destroy the iPhone. It has to get broken down. How does it get broken down? It gets taken to plants, and from there it gets broken down into neighborhoods and streets and blocks until through a wire it comes all the way down. A little bit of electricity can be given, pumped for this, can be plugged into this specific iPhone and charge it. So in a similar sense, the Alter Rebbe is saying like this, that these nivroim, these 10 things that Hashem created specifically, these 10 things that Hashem articulated explicitly during the Sheshis and Bereishis, these are basically the 10 main existences that Hashem created. Water, light, the heavens, the earth, things like that. Now, from there, it has to get broken down. But in order for these things to exist, the Alter Rebbe is saying they cannot be created. This is the Alter Rebbe saying. They cannot be created, the system that Hashem uses cannot be created directly from the words that Hashem said. Because the words that Hashem said are, so to speak, too powerful. These words have to get broken down. They have to be filtered down, right? The same is true with everything. With Chassidus uses the mashal many times of a Rav and a Talmud, right? A Rav wants to teach a Talmud. We're not talking about, I'm saying we're talking about a real Rav and a Talmud, right? So when the Rav teaches the Talmud, so the Rav cannot teach the Talmud the way the Rav understands because it's too much. So if the Talmud is taka on the Rav's level, then yeah, the Rav can just teach the Talmud the way the Rav understands it, and the Talmud will get it. But if the Talmud isn't, for those of us mere mortals who are unable, so it has to be broken down through something called tzimtzum. All right, later in Shaar rebbe will talk at great length about the concept of tzimtzum. For now, here, he doesn't really say the word tzimtzum, but it is, b'pashtus, the way I understand it, it's the same idea. It's the energy of Hashem that has to be filtered down first into mankind, then into animals, then into plant life, eventually into daimim, until it can come to a nivra prati, to a specific creation, and put it in and hold it in existence. The specific creations, they cannot receive their energy directly from the Asara Mamoros themselves. Because the chayas that comes from the Asara Mamoros themselves, Godel Moed, is too great from specific created beings. They don't have the power, they don't have the koyach to receive the chayas. Unless the chayas, the energy goes down, goes through seder shtalshlus, devolves from level from one level to a lower level. Again, through these exchanging of the letters, the gematriyos and the gematriyos, which is the calculation of the letters. Oh, there it is. There's the word tzimtzum. Until it can go through such a tzimtzum, such a confinement, ulehislabesh, and enclothe, ulehishavesmen, and should be created from it nivra prati, a specific nivra, a specific created being. Okay, the Alter Rebbe is also, while he's explaining this, the Alter Rebbe is also explaining to us the meaning of this idea that the letters, we keep talking about this, that the letters in the Asara Mamoros, they go through transition, right? There's 231, last week someone asked why the Alter Rebbe mentions this twice. I still don't have an answer for that. But it's 231 different ways that the letters transition. What's the meaning of this transition, letters that are transitioning? What's the significance of it? Right? So I mentioned, when we learned that, I mentioned there's a system called atbash. The first letter gets exchanged with the last letter, the second letter, second last letter. So when you sort of hear it for the first time, it sounds like a bit of a game, right? Gematria. So we give every letter a numerical value, and now Aleph doesn't just mean Aleph, it also means one. And Kuf doesn't just mean Kuf, it also means 100. It sounds superficial. What the Alter Rebbe is saying from Chassidus explains, it's not superficial at all. Because every letter that comes from Hashem, every letter in Torah, contains a certain divine power. Not just a divine power which is too powerful for most nivroim, for most created existences. So we have to break it down. We have to break it down. These 231 different ways of the letters being exchanged is different systems to break down the letters, to file down the energy within them, right? Like to take the electricity from the plant and to branch it out into millions of different directions until every address gets a specific minute amount of chayas that is necessary for it. It's like, I'll give you an example for this. It's like the word translate, right? The word translate means different things. But if you're translating from one language to another, right? From Yiddish to Japanese. So you're basically taking the same idea, but you're just saying it in a different language. But there's another meaning to the word translate. Sometimes you'll say that the understanding of tzimtzum can be interpreted as translation. That the understanding in the world of the Rav needs to be translated in the world of the Talmud. Now here, you're not giving everything to the Talmud, because you can't, it's too much. Here in this case, what we mean translate, what we mean is application. In other words, we take what exists in the world of the Rav and we give as much of it as we can into the world of the Talmud. We put it into the world of the Talmud in the way the Talmud can understand. So that's what we mean when we say that the letters in the Asar Mamoros of Hashem are going through transition, and they're going through Hishtalshalus, and they're going through Tzimtzum, and all the rest of it. It means that this koyach of and gematriyois, that this koyach of Hashem in the Asar Mamoros, which is very, very big now, is going to come down into these specific created beings and translate itself in a way that can be significant and meaningful for these specific, tiny, minute created beings. Now, just to be clear, even the Asar Mamoros themselves, even the 10 utterance themselves, as Hashem said them, are not infinite. In other words, it's Hashem's words, but they're not infinite. And the proof is that they can create limited created beings, like the Rakia, like the heavens, like light, like water, like dry land, things like that, right? Even different fish, if I remember correctly, were created from the Asar Mamoros themselves. But there's always something large about them. The heavens are large, the water is large, right? The fish, things like that. So it's created beings. There's a certain limitation to it, but it's still, even that is still too large for the Nבראים Pratim, for the specific existences to be brought into existence. For that, you need the letters to transition from level to level until it's able to be Mitzamtzim, Mislabash, L'savis Men, Nivra Pratim. Okay. Let's conclude the parak. There says the Alter Rebbe, this idea, this koyach elokי that keeps this created being in existence, this, the divine letters that in the end will give chayas to this created being, is actually its name, is the name of the created being in Lashon HaKodesh. Who, Keli, this name of the created being is the Keli l'chayas hamatzumtzum ba'oisiyes shem zeh, to the chayas of Hashem, which has come through tzimtzum in the letters of this name, shenishtalshel me'asar mamoros, that come from the 10 utterances shebatorah in the Torah that Hashem used to create the world, sheyesh bem koyach, that have the power, v'chayas, and the life, livra yesh ma'ayin, to create this thing, yesh ma'ayin, ulahachayoisei la'olam, and to keep it constantly in existence again and again and again. And the Rebbe concludes with the words, the oiraisa v'kudshabrichu kulachad, the Torah and Hashem are completely one. Why is it necessary here to talk about the fact that the Torah and Hashem are completely one? Because these Asar Mamoros, as the Alter Rebbe keeps saying, these 10 utterances are actually written in Torah. So in the end, these are not just, so to speak, words of Hashem, but these are words of Hashem as are written in the Torah. So in the end, it's words from the Torah that come into that filter down to give every single individual existence, to give it its life and its vitality. It has the words from the Torah have the power to do so because they are one with Hashem, and therefore every created being is kept into existence from these words of Hashem, as recorded in Torah. This is based on the famous teaching of the Zohar, where the Zohar says, "Istakel bo'iraisa ubara alma," that Hashem looked into the Torah and created the world. That means, and the Zohar explains, that the Torah is Hashem's blueprints. Just like when a builder builds, they build it based off the plans of the architect. So to the Torah is the Eibashter's architectural plans for the existence of the world. So these Asar Mamoros are found in Torah. Okay, just one more point. Of how I think this idea should be understood. A human being, and give a quick mashal. A human being will never make something without some type of purpose, right? So if a person will build a house, if a person will build a business, if a person will build, whatever the case may be, if the person is responsible, there's always a purpose in why they're doing this. Now, what's the purpose? Could be many different things. You could build a house to live in. You could build a house to sell. You could build a house for other people to live in. You could build a house to lease, to rent on. You could build a business. Sometimes you can even build something, just because for whatever reason you want to destroy it. But there's always a purpose. There's always a purpose to the building of it. So again, this is the way I understand the idea. By a human being, the purpose of building something is never the material that you use to actually build it. It sounds a little silly, but bear with me for a minute. In other words, you build a house. Why do you build a house? You build a house, let's say, because you want to live in it. You want to live in it. You want to bring your family in there. You want to create memories. You want to raise your children. You want to live a productive life. You want to raise your family to learn Torah and do mitzvahs and fulfill the will of Hashem and all the rebbe's brachas, etc. Okay, but what's the material that you're going to use to build a house? The material you're going to use is you're going to use bricks and cement. You say bricks and cement. I'm building this house for my family, for Torah mitzvahs, for Yiddishkeit, for Chassidus. Yeah. It's all good, but in order to build a house, you actually need bricks and cement. You can't build it with Torah mitzvahs. And they said that they were once sitting. The rebbe was once sitting by one of the Yom Tov meals in the days when the rebbe used to eat together with other people, and they had guests. So they were talking about one of the Chabad buildings that were being built somewhere in the world. So they were talking about it. So sometimes the rebbe participated in the conversation, sometimes not. So they're talking about a very large, edifice that was being built for one of the Chabad houses, outreach center somewhere in the world. So somebody around the table asked, where'd they get all the money? These projects are very expensive to build this building. So the person who was reporting on the building says, they don't have any money. So they asked, somebody around the table asked, so how are they building the building if they don't have any money? So the Rebbe's sitting there. So the person goes, what do you mean? In Yiddish, he says, mit the Rebbe's brachas. We're building it with the Rebbe's brachas. So the way the story goes is that when the Rebbe was sitting there, the Rebbe burst out laughing, till his body was shaking. Of course, in a ruchniistic sense, we're building the house with the Rebbe's brachas, for the sake of learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. But the material to build the house, for this, you need bricks and cement. A person will build a business, right? Why are you building the business? I'm building the business to make money. I'm building the business to provide for my children, building the business to give tzedakah, to help Yidden, to employ other Yidden, whatever the case may be, yeah? Okay, how are you actually going to build the business? To build it, you need secretaries, you need a business plan, you need merchandise that you're going to sell, you need inventory, you need a website, these are the materials that you need to build something. When a person builds something, is not the same as the purpose for why it's being built. I have a vision in my head, a purpose, but then you got to go out and collect the materials for it. Now, once you have the material, I'll use my vision, I'll use my motive in building this to make sure I use all the building blocks and all the materials to build it in line with my vision for it. And if I get lost, I'll come back to the mission statement that I wrote or that I had in mind before I built the business to make sure that I'm building it in line with its intended purpose. But fakert, I always have to go back to the mission statement to check it, to make sure that I'm not getting lost in the building of the business and working with all the other things that I'm doing. Make sure that I don't get lost there to the extent that a person is vulnerable to even forget why they're building the building of the business in the first place. This is by human beings. Hashem, not the case by the Eibashter, by Hashem. The Alter Rebbe is stressing, it's not just that Hashem said Asara Mamoros. Not just that Hashem said, let there be this, let there be that, etc. It's not just 10 utterances. It's 10 utterances in the Torah. Why is this important? It's important because the Torah is the vision, the Torah is the motive, the Torah is the purpose of existence. right? It's like Hashem's going to build a world. Hashem's going to make a world. What's the purpose of the world? The purpose of the world is articulated in Torah. Says the Alter Rebbe, yeah. When the Eibishter says in Torah, Yehi Oyer, Yehi Rakia, actually this articulation of Torah, of the existence of the world, this is the material which is responsible for the very existence of the world and keeps it in existence every single second. I'm going to go back to the motion. It's like, imagine a person says, I want to build a house. And the house will have 10 rooms, 5 bedrooms, a dining room, a living room, and it'll be conducive to Chassidish Habrengens and to Shiurim and all sorts of things. Now imagine those words, in a human being, by human being, it's obviously not possible. But imagine if those words would actually produce the house. So what's the pshat? The pshat is that the motivation of the person, the vision of the person, that's actually materializing in the existence of the house. Now, by a human being, it doesn't work that way. They need materials, obviously, and the materials are outside their own vision for the house. But here the Alter Rebbe is saying, when the Eibishter created the world, the words that the Eibishter used to bring the world in existence, these are Torah words. And Hashem and Torah are one. That means the purpose of the existence of the world. Torah mitzvahs, Yiddishkeit, the reason why Hashem created it, that's not just responsible for the reason of the world's existence. That's not just the purpose of the existence of the world. That's in the end actually the force and the power that brings the physical and spiritual world into existence. The world doesn't just exist in order to fulfill Hashem's mission. The world actually exists by virtue of Hashem's mission. Hashem's mission is responsible for the very existence of the world. Okay, that's the point I wanted to make. When you understand this at least a little bit, one can now understand why the Rebbe would repeat in so many of his sichos and talk about this so many times, that the Rebbe would articulate the following idea, that a Jew will sometimes get to a place, in a position, where they feel like there's something in the world that's standing in between their way and fulfilling what it is that Hashem wants, right? So Hashem wants me to, Hashem wants me to provide a parnasa for my family, but I can't if I don't work on Shabbos, right? A person can get stuck in a position like that. Says the Rebbe, it's not possible. It's not possible that the world, as Hashem created it, should actually should get in the way of a Yid doing Torah mitzvahs. It's not possible. Why is it not possible? Because the purpose of the world is to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. No. Because the existence of the world is to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. Or in better words, because the purpose for which Hashem envisioned the existence of the world, that itself is directly responsible for the existence of the world. Hashem doesn't then need, after Hashem has a plan, he doesn't then need to bring exterior materials, objects, to then put the world together. It's not how it works. It's Hashem's vision and purpose of existence that materializes directly, that translates itself directly in the existence of the world. And that's how the world comes to be, and that's what keeps the world in existence every single second. So if there's something in the existence of the world that's interfering with Torah mitzvahs, the Rebbe would always say, that must be an illusion. That must be an illusion. That must be that you're stuck somehow in the wrong perspective, and you're seeing it this way, which must be completely false. Once you would move this illusion away and get in touch truly with the true nature of the existence of the world and reality as Hashem created it, then the purpose for which it was created would materialize before you clearly, because it's not just the purpose for which it was created. In the case of everything that was created by Hashem, the material, the fabric which Hashem created it out of is actually the Asara Mamoras Torah, which means the Torah's articulation of why these things should exist in the end is the fabric, is the very material, the very DNA of its actual existence. All right. Adkan. Thank you for being with us today for our Shir Tanya. We will continue in Mitzvah Hashem next week.